Hello chess friends, and welcome to Zarov's chess channel, and welcome to my Nimzo-Indian defense series. So in this series we are following a very nice opening while playing as black against the first move d4. So in order to get a better understanding of this video, please watch first my introduction video. This is now video number 4. So with this introduction video it's video number 5. So in order to get a better understanding of this video, please watch all of these videos combined like they're following, and really I think you'll have great preparation against d4. So basically we all want to have good openings while playing as black, because I had my troubles. I basically play the King's Indian, also sometimes this Nimzo-Indian that I'm gonna explain you today. And today we're continuing with the so-called Spielmann variation. The Spielmann variation is a little bit different than this classical variation that I've explained in my previous video. In this classical variation with had this queen on c2 setup, today we'll have this queen on b3 setup. It's a little bit different, you'll see why, but let's remind us again what this Nimzo-Indian is all about. So they say the repetition is the mother of learning. So when we're playing the Nimzo-Indian, as I said, most of the times I mentioned this principle so many times in my previous videos. So when we're playing the Nimzo-Indian, we have basically a battle of the knight versus bishop, so we want to keep the position closed. When we maybe give up our dark square bishop, you'll see in the continuation that in some examples we'll also give up our dark square bishop. Then we want to build sort of a fortress on dark squares. It means we have to play against this dark square bishop for opponents, because we want to really somehow battle against this bishop, because if this bishop if the dark square bishop gets an activity, I think you could have problems while playing the Nimzo-Indian. So as I said, center pawn storms, battling the center pawn storms, it's explained in the first 2 videos of the series. In this video I don't think that we'll have this pawn storm problem in the center, so this principle is much more explained in this previous videos. So positional trades of pieces, we'll come to that also in this video. When we are playing against the bishop pair, one of the ideas when we are maybe playing with our knight and the bishop is get rid of at least one of these bishops. So in order to, because you see the bishops are perfectly fine together, and we want to get rid of at least one of them. So elements of the blockade, we will have this also in this in this video. When we are playing the Nimzo-Indian, we want to have a blocked pawn structure in the center. We don't want to have dynamic pawn structures. As said, the knights love the blocked pawn structure, so that's why you should try to somehow block out your opponent's position. So going into favorable endgames, this will not be so much explained in this video, because we will have now opening preparations here. The endgame is not so important in this video, and exploiting weaknesses, will come to that also here in this video, because as I said, always the main weaknesses in your opponent's position can be a weak pawn or a weak square. So you should exploit these weaknesses, try to get maybe an advantage, and go simply for these weaknesses. So let's see now this Spielmann variation. As said, it's a little bit different than this classical variation. Here after d4 we have knight on f6 or c4, and now e6, and after knight on c3 bishop on b4. This is now this common pinning idea of the Nimzo-Indian. As said, I've explained it in my previous videos, so please watch these videos from this introduction video, then the first video, then the second, and you should then watch this video. So here after bishop on b4 we have this queen on b3. This is the Spielmann variation. It's a direct attack against the bishop, so basically we have several options, but my recommendation here is to go as in the classical variation, to go here with the move knight on c6. Because when we have moved the queen, like in the previous classical variation with the queen on c2 or queen on b3, you don't have anymore the protection of this d4 pawn. So this is very important in the continuation of the game, because white will need to play this move e3 or this move knight on f3. But let's see first this line. If your opponent plays the move d5, this d5 is basically not so good, I think, because here you can play simply knight on d4. You see your opponent cannot take the bishop on b4 because you have some forks here on c2. That's why here queen on d1 has to be played, but now c5, simply closing the bishop. And if anything happens here, if your opponent tries something like a3, we can always take and create this weak pawn structure. Still we have some possibilities to place the knight here on f5, then after that maybe even on e7 and then on g6. So here the most important thing is that your opponent will have this double pawn weakness in the continuation of the game. So after c5, most players will probably answer with the move bishop on d2. Here I recommend you to simply trade off this pawn, c takes d5, c takes d5, and here simply castling. The instructive game in this particular line that I wanted to show you, it's a gameplay by Vladimir Antoshin against Igor Naumkin. And I will also send you all of these PGNs of the games that I've used in this video in the description below, so you can analyze these games for yourself much deeper. I just wanted to show you this game from this opening preparation point of view. Here, after simple castling, I think you have a good game, because if your opponent tries something like e3, you can simply play like Black did in this particular game, the move rook on e8, and now you see we have the spinning idea. We can stay a little bit longer with this knight on d4. Here bishop on d3 was played, and now simply go d6. This is now, as I mentioned, this blocked pawn structure in the center. You see we have created a blockade against this advanced pawn on d5, so the position is fixed. We can now go and really play very actively, because I hope you realize that in this Nimzo-Indian setup all of these pieces are very well placed, and now they have a huge activity in the continuation. So king on f1 was played, and now knight on f5. Not a problem. You see we have at least prevented now white from castling. Knight on e2 was played, and now knight on g4. Very dangerous stuff here, because after knight on f4 we have bishop on c3, and if you take with the bishop, then we have knight on e3 with some forks. So that's why here b takes c3 was played, and this is now the position that we want to have in the Nimzo-Indian. We have now this weak bishop here, which is blocked out by its own pawns, although white doesn't have double pawns anymore. But here still this bishop on d2 is the main weakness. And as I said, I'm not going to explain you the whole game. I'll send you this PGNs in the description below. Here you can simply play healthy moves, like here black did queen on h4, simple attack here against this pawn on f2. g3 had to be played, but now queen on f6. Of course you cannot take immediately, because again we have some discovered attack possibilities, so that's why this queen on g4 is not possible so far. So let's see now another example. Here of course you have to battle for a win. I'm not saying that black will win in this game, but here I hope you realize we have now prevented white from castling. We have a nice activity, and still maybe we have some a6 b5 flank attack possibilities, or even if the bishop moves this knight on e3, sacrificing ideas here on the star square. So let's see now another example. It's a game played by Dietman. Let's flip the board from black's perspective. We have Dietman Zieghart against Arvach Bakhtiar. Here again a queen on b3 was played, and here as I recommended, here knight on c6, again with an attack on this pawn on d4. Here d5 again, we have e takes d5, c takes d5, a different move order, but again with the idea knight on d4. As I mentioned, you cannot take the pawn here on b4, so that's why queen on d1 again, and now c5. a3 was played, and now bishop on a5. Now you can stay on this very nice diagonal, because you see after b4 we have a takes b4, and here a takes b4, and now bishop on b6. Still we're continuing the game with this very active knight on d4, which is very important. And here after e3 still we have the possibility to place the knight on f5, knight on f3, and now as I mentioned this d6 move, very important, creating the blockade against this potential d6 move by white. So bishop on e2, castling, simply healthy moves. This coordination of these two knights is perfectly fine. These knights are controlling very important squares here in the center of the board, so this knight's activity is very powerful here. Castling played by white, and now bishop on d7, simply developing now all of our pieces, and now our main idea is to somehow move the queen from the first rank and connect the rooks and really finish our development. Here e4 was played, and now rook on c8, very important move, I think, counter-attacking. Here queen on the d3 was played, and now knight on e7. The idea is here to play knight on g6, then maybe knight on g4, and then cement a knight here on e5, because although white has maybe a better activity now with the pieces, but still he has this weakness, this backward pawn here on e4, which is very important. Of course, it's not possible immediately to advance the pawn. Here knight on a4 was played, and now you can also pause the video and try to find the best move. It's really a great positional move. You see, with the knight on a4, white showed a little bit his cards, but I hope you realize that white has here this pawns on light squares, and if these pawns are really not mobile, this was good for the knight. So that's why here black took out the knight with the move bishop on a4, rook takes on a4, very powerful, and now knight on g6 with the idea, as I said, to create the blockade against this potential e5 move. So great positional play here by black. This bishop is a little bit out of game, although if the queen moves maybe to d2 or something else, it has maybe a good diagonal, but it's the bishop is aiming here really into nothing, and we can really go and continue with this powerful bishop and still with this very nice control of this knight. Let's see a couple of moves further. Queen on b1 was played, queen on e8, b5 was played, and now knight on d5, very powerful move, because you cannot take, you lose the bishop. So I'm not going to show you the whole game. As said, this game will be also in the description below, so you can analyze the whole game then after that. So let's see now another example. This is now a different line that I wanted to show you. It's a game played by ARE against Miguel Najdorf. Here you see, after knight on c6, white can play this move knight on f3 in order to defend this pawn on d4. So as said, white is continuing the development, also protecting here this d4 pawn. Here I recommend you simply to castling, and here one thing that can bother you is the move bishop on g5. Bishop on g5, it seems that is really dangerous, because now we have the pin on the queen, and this bishop is attacked. So basically white is preparing here now finally this move d5. Here I recommend you simply to play the move bishop h6, kicking away the bishop, and if your opponent plays something like h4, bishop on h4, then you have simply g5. After bishop on g3, we can play simply g4 with an attack on the knight. If the knight moves here maybe to h4, then we have knight on d4. Of course your opponent cannot take because we have the fork, so that's why white would be forced then to play this counter-attack idea with d5, but still we can take, I think, and here we can simply take after maybe d takes c6, we can simply take, bishop takes on c3, here b takes c3, and now we can even go here, pawn takes on e2, bishop takes on e2, and d takes c6. The position is much more simplified. Here I recommend you, if that happens to you, simplify the position even more. Try to trade off maybe the queens, try to develop this light square bishop. Rook on e8 is also a powerful idea if your opponent doesn't castle immediately. So I think you can battle against this bishop here, because here you see we have 6 pawns, so white has only 5 pawns, so it could be playable here for black. So let's see in the continuation. As said, after bishop bishop on g5, as the most important move here is the move h6, so that's why here white retreated with the bishop on d2, and now Miguel Najdorf played the move d6, waiting now white to do something. Here you see e3 was played by white. If of course e4, it's not good. We have bishop on c3. After bishop on c3 we have knight takes on e4, so that's why white has to go into this patient line with the move e3, and now rook on e8, very important move after bishop on e2, now playing in sort of a King's Indian style, e5, and here d5 was played, and now very important move, because now the dynamics of the game has really changed, because we had now the dynamic pawn structure in the center. Now after the move d5 the pawn structure is blocked, so it means this pawn structure could be favorable for the knight, so that's why here Miguel Najdorf immediately took bishop takes on c3, bishop takes on c3, and now knight on e7. Here knight on d2, we have knight on d7 with the preparation to play the move knight on c5, maybe creating some blocking system with the move a5. Here queen on c2 was played, a5, f5, pardon me, with sort of a King's Indian style, trying to get a pawn breakthrough here on the king side. g4 was played. Here we have f takes g4, bishop takes on g4, and as said, knight on f6. Very important move, as said also here in my main principles of the Nimzo-Indian positional trades of pieces. So it means getting rid of this bishop pair is also a very powerful idea while playing the Nimzo-Indian. Now if we manage to do that, white will continue the game with the blocked out bishop here, so this could be a good game. So that's why white wasn't interested in this, played the move bishop on f3, and now rook on f8. Here we have rook on g1, bishop on f5 with an attack against the queen. Here e4, very important provocative move, sort of by Miguel Najdorf, really forcing now this move e4, because now the position is getting much more blocked with the move e4. Now of course bishop on h7, not a problem, castling, and now knight on g6 with the preparation to place this knight on this very important square f4, and you see white is continuing the game with the backward pawn. So if we cement this knight on f4, this is perfectly fine. Of course this knight on f4 can be supported even with the rook, because we can play something like knight on d7, and here play, as I mentioned, knight on c5, a5, creating sort of blocking system. As said, also one of the main principles of this Nimzo-Indian is to create this blockade, fixing the knights, blocking out these bishops, not allowing these bishops to spread their wings, because here I think if you allow some f4 pawn breakthroughs, as said here, if you allow your opponent some f4 pawn breakthroughs, if this bishop gets into the game, this could be game over. So that's why you see Miguel Najdorf, one of the best chess players also in history, played very nice positionally here with the preparation to place the knight on this very important square. And I'm not going to show you also this game till the end. You can also analyze this game at home. Let's see now another example. Here we have a game played by Alexander Tolush here against Paul Keres. Let's go back a little bit. Here we have this knight on c6 and knight on f3 setup. As I said, here my recommendations are to simply castle. And now let's see the continuation if your opponent plays the move e3 without this bishop on g5 idea to pin you. But this e3 shows a little bit the cards immediately, because now we can see that this bishop will be blocked out by this very annoying pawn structure here on e3 and d4. So it allows you now to block the bishop here with the move d5. Very nice move played by Paul Keres. It's really sort of a positional move, although the position still can get opened. But I hope you realized, if we could just see this activity of these two bishops, this bishop is perfectly fine, this bishop is blocked out, but the knight is also a very important piece in these types of setups. So as said, if we could block out this dark square bishop of white, it could be a favorable continuation here for black. So bishop on d2, we have now d takes c4, a very powerful move. After bishop on c4, here Paul Keres played the move bishop on d6, and here of course white tried to chase the knight, chase the bishop with the move knight on b5, but here Paul Keres found a very nice square for the knight, knight on e4. The knight on e4 outpost is also a common idea in the Nimzo-Indian setup. Of course we cannot support this pawn, support this knight with the move f5, because white has a very powerful diagonal. But here after knight takes on d6, we have c takes d6, and now the threat is, the positional threat from black's perspective is to play the move d5. If we manage to do that, then the position will be really blocked out. This bishop is blocked out anyway, so that's why d5 is sort of a threat. Here castling was played, and now knight on e7 with the preparation maybe to finally to play the move d5. Here bishop on e1 was played. You see white is trying to hang on to this bishop pair, but now b6, creating again sort of fortress on dark squares. As I said, also you should place as many of your pawns on dark squares. Knight on d2, we have knight takes on d2, bishop on d2, and you see it was sort of a maneuver by white just in order to get rid of this very annoying knight that was placed on e4. But now after bishop on b7, here rook on d1, and now knight on f5 was played, d5. And I want you to pause the video and just think about this. Should I take this pawn or create a blockade? Of course, here you have to play in Nimzo-Indian style, on this blocking style. Play the move e5, simply passing through. Now you see again we have accomplished that this bishop is blocked out by its own pawn, with the possibilities to play annoying and attacking stuff here with the move knight on h4, then maybe queen on g5 with some checkmate threats. And I'm gonna show you also this whole game in the description below. I hope you realize that from a positional point of view, black has this advantage because this bishop is blocked out again by its own pawn. Here this bishop on c4 is also blocked out by its own pawn. So I said this is also one of the main strategical ideas while playing the Nimzo-Indian, trying to block out or force your opponent to block out his own bishops. Here Paul Keres, one of the best chess players also in history, accomplished that very nice with some nice maneuvers of the knight, and here the bishops are basically used. So let's see now another example. Here it's a game again by this Alexander Tolush against Alexei Sokolsky. Again we have this setup with e3. Again white showed his cards that he's gonna go into this defensive setup with bishop on d2, so that's why here black tried immediately the move d5. Here bishop on d2, castling, and now your opponent can try sometimes to castle on the queen side. It leads now into this very dangerous opposite side attack games. But here I think after bishop on e7 it's very important to stay now in this opposite side attack games with the bishops and try to get a flank attack as soon as possible. Here c takes d5 was played. We have e takes d5, and now f3, preparing to play the move e4 and then grab some central control with probably the move e5, then followed with f4. So that's why here bishop on e6 very powerful. If your opponent plays the move e4, then of course we can play here d takes e4, and then we have some discovered attacks on the queen. And if your opponent tries the move queen on b7, then it's well, it's not so powerful, I think, because in this opposite side attack games it's a common idea to even sacrifice some pawns just in order to create some open files, open diagonals, get your attacks much faster than your opponent. So here queen on b7, I don't think that's good. So that's why white is also trying to close the position as much as possible on the queen side, not allowing black to do some attacks here and get the fast attack against his king. So that's why here after bishop on e6, here g4 was played, and it comes with the idea now who is faster will probably win the game. Now knight on knight on a5, very important. Here we have queen on c2, and now of course c5. We have to play as fast as we can here. Bishop on d3 was placed here. C takes d4. We have e takes d4. Now knight on c6. This is also very important. It creates a decisive tempo after g5 with an attack on the knight. We have first knight on b4 with the fork on the bishop and the queen. Queen on b1 had to be played, and now knight on d3, queen takes on d3, and now knight on e8 with the preparation to play knight on d6, and then after that place the knight on this very powerful square on f5. If you try something like b3 in order to kick away this knight from f5, then of course this star square bishop would be deadly. You see here in the continuation f4, white desperately tried now to speed up the attack here. Here knight on d6 was played, preventing this f5 idea, and after knight on e2 we have queen on d7, connecting now finally the rooks. Knight on g3, again with the preparation to finally play this move f5, which can be maybe prepared with the move rook on f1. But here first rook on c8, and I think black is simply better here. Black is faster on the attack. We have rook on e1, and now finally b5. We have king on b1, but simply pushing forward b4. We have knight on d1, and now very important move, knight on c4. So this is I think completely winning here for black. All we have to do is somehow open some files against white kings. Black managed to do that very nice and won the game eventually. So let's see now this last example of this video here. After queen on b3 and my recommendation knight on c6, knight on f3 castling, and here is a line if your opponent tries to move a3. So this a3, I recommend you to take the knight on c3 after queen on c3. Now comes, I think, a very important move, and it's the move a5. This a5 it comes with its blocking systems. As I said, when we are playing this knight versus bishop game, you should build fortresses on dark squares. So it means we have to block out the position as much as we can. a5, perfectly fine. Here in the continuation, b3 had to be played after castling. Now e3, you see again this e4 is not possible. White would love to play the move e4 and try some pawn breakthrough immediately and create some pawn stomps in the center immediately, but it's not possible. You see, white has to go into this calm line with the move e3, rook on e8, and now bishop on b2. Very nice, and now finally e5. Opening the position, d takes e5. We have d takes e5 here, bishop on e2, bishop on g4, developing the bishop on the most active squares here. h3, bishop on h5, castling, knight on e4. You see, as I said, knight on e4. Remember, memorize this move. It's very important in Nimzo-Indian setups. Knight on e4, queen on c2, and now finally knight bishop on g6, getting on this very annoying diagonal against the queen. So that's why here rook on d1 was played, queen on e7, not a problem. Still we have a good control with this knight in the center. Bishop on d3 was played, and here black found a very nice tactic here. Knight takes on f2. You see king takes on f2 had to be played, and now e4. Queen on c3, now f6, of course, preventing this checkmate. Here on g7, bishop on e2, e takes f3, g takes f3, and although white still has the bishop pair, white has now also weakened pawn structure around his king. So I think black is better, and black won the game eventually. I'm sorry I didn't say which game it was. It was a game played by Vladimir Fedoseev here with the black pieces against Alexander Injits. So okay, I hope you realize these ideas. As said, against this Spielmann variations, my recommendation is to go into this after this move queen on b3, to go into this knight on c6 line, which is very important. I think this move to attack this pawn on d4. forcing your opponent to do something like the move e3 or knight on f3, slowing down a little bit white's progress, white's attack. Still, we continue with this very important pinning idea, and as I said, don't worry about this d5 move. I don't think it's so aggressive, so don't be scared to play this Nimzo-Indian. Very aggressive, but also very positional. I think you can win some games very easily if you manage to apply these systems. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other Nimzo-Indian videos with some other lines that I've explained so far in the series, and you can also watch my King's Indian videos if you want to see a more aggressive way to play against d4, and you can also watch my hyper accelerated ranked Sicilian defense videos if you want to have a good and effective weapon while playing against e4, and you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.